Hello from Studio C70 at the Committee of 70. My name is Patrick Christmas, and next month we got a big election for the city of Philadelphia. May 21 is primary day. Huge election, huge primary. Judicial offices on the ballot, city offices on the ballot, mayor, city council, row offices. One of those very important row offices is city commissioner. Elections are like job interviews. The candidates are like the job applicants, voters like the hiring committee, and we have one of the job applicants for city commissioner right here, Luigi Borda.
Hi, folks.
Luigi, welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We only have 15 minutes, so we're going to jump straight in. What's your understanding of the job of city commissioner, and why are you running for it?
Okay. Job of commissioner is we're tasked with getting voter turnout and managing the elections. We're really lucky in Philadelphia. We're the only big city in America that has an elected commissioner's office. And why I want to run for office? Okay. And the way I see it, Philadelphia has a systemic problem with voter turnout is low, and that's the biggest problem with the office. I think schools and teachers are uniquely positioned to stem that and make a healthy cycle moving forward. And I have a plan that will get voter turnout up and help Philadelphia in all aspects of government.
So, let's talk just a little bit about you real quick. So, you're currently a teacher.
Yep.
Could you talk also, about your, not just your professional background, but your civic and political background as well, and how you think that'll translate well into being a city commissioner? Because I know like elections are not a new thing for you.
I'll talk a little bit about myself first. I came to this country as a little boy. I'm an immigrant from Italy. I went to Central High School. I met my wife on the subway. She was going to Girls High. And when I was 18 and graduated from Central, I gave up my Italian citizenship in order to vote in Philadelphia for the first time. I became a teacher. I've been teaching in Philadelphia for 30 years. 7 years ago, when Corbett cut our budget and the house in Harrisburg, I ran from 440 to Harrisburg in order to fight the budget cuts. What I learned during that run, it took me 3 days, was that I think during my lifetime, Harrisburg is not going to truly care about our children, our schools, or quite frankly, our city. And part of that reason is we don't tend to vote too much. Okay. So that systemic problem with voting causes Harrisburg not to, to disproportionately fund our schools and not worry about us affecting voter turnout. So Philadelphia, and I'm sure, Pat, you know this, but I don't know if everyone out there knows that a big election 3 years ago, 2 million people voted in Pennsylvania, and yet the margin of victory for the presidency was 44,000 votes. 365,000 Philadelphians didn't vote in that election. A lot of people got more civically involved. Everybody's involved. Last primary election, only 17% of us turned out. So 2 years after that election, we still have an abysmal record in a primary. In a city that has 7 out of 8 Democrats, our primaries are our elections. I think everything comes back to education. It's funny, on Fridays we do a current event lesson. Okay, it's who, what, where, when, and how.
Right.
Okay, I think a lot of Philadelphians don't know who, what, where, and how with the elections. We don't know who's running. We don't know how to vote. We don't know why they're running. And it's because I think our commissioner's office isn't doing a good enough problem reaching the people who didn't vote. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So turnout is clearly that's a big part of your platform. So can you talk about like what would that look like if you're a city commissioner? Are you engaging in that turnout programming as a Democratic city commissioner, or as part of the county board, which is both Democratic and Republican, overseeing our elections?
That's a great question. I think the commissioner's office should get people to the polls. Okay. I think we should leave it up to the politicians to get you to vote for she or he. So we have a two-pronged approach with the commissioner's office. The education part would be immediate and long-term. The immediate plan would be to make a voter turnout division in the commissioner's office, where we break the city into 5 regions. We've started recruiting. 2 years ago, 4 years ago, I ran for committee person. 2 years ago, we looked through all the people who applied for committee positions, 1,690. We found out 172 were educators. So we were able to get 172 approximately, and that's not retired. So we could say it's over 200. So we think by using teachers and getting a program called Philly Civics 101 in the classroom, we've gotten, can I show you a prop?
Yeah, please.
A teacher always has their visuals. We went to City Hall and we got council people on board to teach 10 simple lessons on how to be a good Philly voter. Now this is a word map. Now Pat knows how many words are there,
We have
Pat?
66 geographic words.
Good. There's 66, but it's actually 69 because the 39th, the 40th, and the 66 are split in A, B. Pat knows that. He just didn't want to say it. Okay? So our teachers are in 64 of these wards. So a lot of people don't know that. So when I became a committee person, I used to introduce myself to politicians. Hi, I'm Luigi Borda. And they would look right past me. They'd say, that's a middle-aged man who talks a lot. Now I say, hi, I'm Luigi Borda, 2615. That tells you, what does that tell you, Pat?
That you're a committee person.
Good. Now all of a sudden I represent 300, 400, or 500 votes. Now he's smiling and he's paying attention. I think we should all in the city know our first thing, our ward and our division. We need to take City Hall, I'm sorry, we need to take the commissioner's office outside of City Hall and bring it into the communities. We think we should have 5 of these in the city. That's Councilman Curtis Jones looking and pointing to his ward because he knows his ward, right? Well, on Saturday, we went to Point Breeze for a 5K with Kenyatta Johnson. We went to Fishtown for a 5K with Councilman Squilla. Then we went to Nicetown with Ivan Robinson, a former Philadelphia boxer. And when we get there, we explain to people the voting system. And then the first simple lesson is, where's your ward and where's your division? Because if we can get everyone involved and knowing simple things like that, the who, what, where, when starts to fall into place.
So another issue that has come up a lot. Turnout has certainly been mentioned by a number of candidates. Another issue, quite high profile and a bit of controversy around it this past year, is the selection of a new voting system, right? Which I know that you've been following closely. Can you speak to the particular system that was chosen? The process that drew some scrutiny, and how you would guarantee to Philadelphia voters, if you were a city commissioner, that our elections are secure and that the process has integrity.
And I think we should consider as a city to overturn that decision. And we need paper marked ballots with a backup system. I was surprised. I went to both open meetings and I was surprised that almost every single person mentioned that they didn't think it was a good idea, including the Attorney General and the
city controller.
City controller, exactly. And yet they still did it. It seemed really rushed. And this is one of the reasons why people become disenfranchised in voting. Okay. For instance, I'm a super voter and I've gotten probably 8 things in the mail in the last 5 days. People who don't vote are not going to get those. Okay. So when we lack the education and with regards to why these things are important, then the systemic problems keeps coming around. So I definitely think we should revisit the machines. We should find out which machines are working in other municipalities, and just like basically finding out what's working and then applying it here. So,
another major issue in election integrity are the folks on the ground actually, running our elections, in that firehouse, in that rec center. These are the poll workers. It's a challenge across the country, not just the state, but the country, in recruiting these folks, retaining them, and preparing them to do the job on election day. Can you speak to, what do you think the biggest, issues are with poll workers in Philadelphia, and how would you, how would you make sure that our election boards are fully staffed, ready to go?
Recruiting wise, I think, again, we need to reach out to communities that aren't involved in this process and explain to them why it's important. So, in addition, we can reach out. I asked the commissioner's office with regards to staffing, and they said they hire a lot of temps. And I was thinking retired teachers. Retired teachers have been teaching for years, and they'll be able to explain that process to people. So it all comes down to letting people know. For instance, the teachers that are now committee people, we have them recruiting other teachers. So I think every department, for instance, I have this shirt. I teach, I vote. What do you do, Pat?
I advocate and I vote.
Excellent. So you should, I advocate, I vote. The only way the commissioner's office is going to improve voter turnout is if we all get involved, all city agencies. I was part of the transition team for the Kenny administration, and I thought it was great that during their transition, they asked every department to come up with a plan for better education and to help our schools. I think if we're fortunate enough to have the controller's office, we're going to go to each city department and find out what could they do specifically to increase voter turnout. Unless we increase voter turnout, we're always going to have elected officials who disproportionately represent the population. And those regular voters that aren't voting are going to be underserved. And that's never going to change. I shouldn't say never. That's not going to change in Philadelphia unless we increase voter turnout to 50%. Now, 50% seems lofty. Well, in the last primary, it was only 17% voter turnout. Okay, no problem. We had teachers who became committee people for the first time. One is Kathleen Melville. Another one is Stephen Petro in the first ward. They both had over 50% in that primary on their first election. So you say, well, they're new. Well, what if I told you Mark Squilla, who's been a committee person for over 30 years in 39th ward, also had 50%. So we had 10 or more people who got 50% or more in an election that only had 18%. Now, what we need to do is go out to those wards and have professional development with committee people. Right? We have younger committee people and veteran committee people both kicking butt. Right? Then the other end is we have some that have challenges. Right? And they all have different challenges. We have a veteran ward leader like Miss Jenkins, Carol Jenkins in the 27th. She has a problem with transient students, where they're going to register, et cetera. Right? And we have a new ward leader who's also a teacher. 64th ward is Pete McDermott. He has challenges up in Mayfair. Now we have a new ward leader and a veteran ward leader. They should get together and talk. So we should have professional development just like teachers do, but with wards and committees around the city. And we need to get all of that information into the community. I can't speak for everyone, but not a lot of people are going to go to City Hall to get information about voting. We need to bring it into the communities on Saturdays, on Sundays, et cetera.
How would you guarantee, with working through the ward system, through the committee people and the ward leaders, it would be nonpartisan work through the city commissioner's office, or would it be the Democratic city commissioners working with the Democratic ward leaders and the Republican city commissioner working with the Republican ward leaders?
That's a great question. Since we have three, if I were fortunate enough to be a commissioner, we would hire a deputy commissioner who's just in charge for voter turnout in the community. And it may seem silly, but we need those vehicles, 5 of them, going to all community events. Phillies games, any event where there's a lot of people, it should become a habit in Philadelphia that we all vote twice a year. Okay? A lot of people voted in the last general election in the midterms. And that's awesome. Okay? But we can't always depend on for lack of a better term, a presidency where some people are so divided. For people to come out, we need a system every year where we vote more than 50%. For instance, if there were 4 of us, we would stand up now because we'd have to do a visual. Right now in Philadelphia, if 1 out of 4 of us votes in a primary, most people would say that was a good primary. 25%, right?
Generally.
Okay. When I'm commissioner, we should be tasked to get 2 out of 4 voting. If we do that, like Kathleen Melville did, like Mark Squilla did, right? Like I think it's 6 wards had over 50% when we only had 18%. So it's being done. Okay, we just need to reward the wards and replicate them and face the ones that have challenges. So if we get to 2 out of 4, what if I told you we would be the #1 county in Pennsylvania in voter turnout, the #1 big city in America in voter turnout? Now I ask you, you think Harrisburg would care about us then? Every elected official in Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. would have to come through Philadelphia. We'd make up those 44,000 votes easily. Now, it should be nonpartisan, but that one aspect, we should get people to the polls. The politicians should get you to vote for them. Right now, I think it's a little bit switched. A lot because of the city committee and the party the way it is, the politicians are getting people to the polls because they want those voters to vote for them. We need to get them to the polls. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, because the city commissioners presumably under this program would not be pushing people one way or another.
Exactly.
They care about every voter, Democratic, Republican, third party, unaffiliated, everybody across the board.
That's 100%. The city commissioner's office should be getting people to vote because the systemic problem of voter turnout is literally dragging us down. And until that increases, we're going to have a hard time doing everything else.
Yeah. You know what? we have to leave it there. That was 15 minutes.
Oh,
so Luigi Borda, thank you for coming in, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so a big election next month again, May 21, big primary. Use 70's nonpartisan voter guide at ballot.70.org. That's ballot.70.org. You could also find the voter guide and a slew of other resources through our WeVote app, and download it wherever you download your apps at home to be ready to vote on May 21. And then finally, thank you to Thomas Cohen Harrison for providing the funding for these broadcasts. Thanks a lot, and see you on Election Day.
Vote.
Luigi, thanks a lot, man.
Okay.